Okay, so when you think of Ludwig van Beethoven, what's the first image that comes to mind? Probably that scowling genius, right? Hair all over the place, wrestling with fate, composing this earth-shattering music. But what if that's just the myth? What if there's a kind of hidden code to his work that reveals a much messier, more contradictory, and, honestly, more human artist? Well, the brilliant pianist Igor Levit thinks there is. And if we dive into how he sees it, we might just be able to crack that code.
So let's start with the Beethoven we all think we know. When Levit talks about playing the Tempest Sonata, he doesn't mince words. He says it's like a violent punch to the gut. It's not just drama, it's a physical assault. The music demands these brutal, lightning-fast reactions, jumping from one extreme to the next. It's a non-stop storm. And yeah, that's the Beethoven we recognize.
And that raw power, that intensity, it's really the heart of the Beethoven myth. You know the one, the tormented artist, the tragic hero, fighting his deafness, fighting his destiny.
And let's be clear, that perception isn't wrong. Not at all. It's completely rooted in the brutal nature of some of his most famous stuff. Levit himself describes a quality that's totally uncompromising, almost merciless. This is Beethoven, the composer of what feels like an apocalyptic drama.
But right here is where Igor Levit hits the brakes and asks a crucial question. If we only see that raging titan, are we missing a massive piece of the puzzle? Are we completely missing the code?
Because, according to Levit, right alongside all that apocalyptic drama, there was something else, something completely unexpected. A prankster. In fact, he says Beethoven was one of the single funniest composers who ever lived. Yeah, you heard that right. Funny.
So this is the first real crack in the old myth. On one side, you've got the brooding titan wrestling with fate. But on the other, Levit shows us this witty, absurd, and straight-up playful guy. He argues there are more moments of audacious humor in Beethoven's work than in almost anyone else's. And this wasn't just some quirky personality trait. It was absolutely central to his music.
So forget that marble bust you see in museums. Levit calls him a total snot-nosed kid. I mean, how great is that? It just completely shatters the image of the super serious composer. It paints a picture of a guy who actually got a kick out of being provocative, out of messing with people's expectations and being outrageously witty.
And he's got the receipts to back it up. I mean, there's this legendary story about an improvisation battle with a rival pianist, Daniel Steibelt. So Steibelt plays his piece, all fancy. Beethoven then comes up, grabs Steibelt's sheet music, literally turns it upside down on the piano, and starts improvising on the theme, just completely humiliating the guy. Steibelt walked out of the room and was never seen in Vienna again. Now come on, that's not just anger, that's performance art. That's a prank.
Okay, so we have Beethoven the humorist. But that doesn't just erase the violence we hear in his music. In fact, Levit takes that idea of violence and gives it a much more specific, and frankly, a much more physical meaning.
When Levit talks about violence in Beethoven's music, he wants to be crystal clear. This is not some elegant metaphor for emotional turmoil. No, he means a literal, physical assault on the instrument itself. He argues that Beethoven was actively trying to push the piano past its breaking point.
Levit even has a name for this, Musik zu Geräusch, which basically means music into noise. In a monster piece like the Hammerklavier Sonata, he says Beethoven wasn't just writing notes. He was composing sounds that were on the verge of total collapse. He was looking for that exact point where the instrument just gives up, where music becomes this percussive crash. He was inflicting pain on the piano, on purpose.
And that violence? It wasn't just for the instrument. Oh no, it was for the performer too. Levit describes some passages as repulsively difficult, like Beethoven is intentionally setting up this physical fight between the pianist and the score. It's this exhausting, body-on-the-line struggle.
So we've got the prankster, and we've got the brawler. But there's a third, crucial element to Beethoven's code, the architect, the absolute genius who could build entire universes from, well, basically nothing.
The ultimate example here has to be the Diabelli variations. So Beethoven gets handed this simple, almost comically basic waltz by another composer. And what does he do? He pulls out these tiny fragments, a simple repeated note here, a little flourish there, and from those little scraps, he builds this monumental hour-long masterpiece. 33 variations, and every single one is its own world.
And that right there, that's the core of his architectural genius. It's this almost magical power to see a whole universe in a grain of sand, To take the most boring, marginal idea and spin it into something profound, or hilarious, or just overwhelmingly powerful.
Okay, so how on earth do you play a composer who is a prankster, a brawler, and an architect all at the same time? Well, this question brings us right to the heart of Levit's whole philosophy on what it means to play Beethoven today.
Levit says this with a bit of a smile, but the point he's making is deadly serious. Beethoven isn't here to complain. He can't tap you on the shoulder and tell you you're playing it wrong. The composer's authority? It's gone. So what do you do? What replaces it?
And this leads to a pretty radical way of thinking. You see, the traditionalist view is that the score is this sacred text, and your job is to be faithful to it. But for Levit, the goal isn't faithfulness, it's responsibility. It's about taking those black dots on the page and making them explode with energy for an audience, right here, right now. The score isn't the final word, it's just the starting point.
So when you start putting all these different pieces together, the humor, the violence, the structure, the freedom, you begin to decode Beethoven in a totally new way. And you realize his music isn't just about one thing. It's about everything, all at once.
So the Beethoven Code isn't just one of these things. It's the volatile, chaotic, unpredictable combination of all of them. You've got the brawler who assaults the piano, the prankster who makes you laugh out loud, and the architect who builds entire worlds. And the real genius? It's that they all exist at the same time.
And that, right there, brings us to Levit's ultimate point. The reason this music lasts, the reason it still feels so incredibly alive and vital today, is because it captures the full, messy spectrum of what it means to be human. It's wild, it's funny, it's profound, it's violent, it's tender, it's chaotic. It's a story written by him, but it's really a story about all of us.
So maybe we need to stop thinking about Beethoven as some perfect, untouchable marble statue. Maybe his real, lasting genius is that he gave us these messy, complicated, deeply human worlds, and then invited us, no, demanded, that we get our own hands dirty trying to make sense of it all.